Hi everyone, my name is Eleanor Noyce. I am the junior staff writer at DIVA magazine, and welcome to this conversation for Lesbian Visibility Week. Today we are with Valentino Vecchietti and we are talking everything intersex. Valentino, would you please introduce yourself?
Hi, my name's Valentino Vecchietti. And I'm the intersex columnist at DIVA magazine. My pronouns are she and they. I'm also, so I'm an intersex equality campaigner, and my work kind of extends through culture into areas of anywhere really, which is everywhere, that people with intersex variations exist. And so my campaign for equality work focuses on cultural spaces, but also through the organisation I founded, Intersex Equality Rights UK, I focus on supporting our population to live safely, inclusively, and with representation in education, in the arts, in the workplace, in society in general, so that we can have live equal, fulfilled, and thrive in the world, which we'll go on to talk about, all the things that are oppressing us in this chat, I'm sure.
So many things. Fabulous. So could you tell us about the organisation that you founded, Intersex Equality Rights UK?
Thanks, Eleanor. It's we're a non-profit intersex-led organisation, but we also have allies working with us. And I founded it to support and create intersex visibility, inclusion, equity, and representation in all spheres, as I've just said, of society. Just like any other marginalised population, we need to be able to live safely and to live joyful lives. Currently, there are a lot of things preventing us from being able to do that. And so creating Intersex Equality Rights UK is a way to try to campaign for equity for our population. It's also to work with organisations. So we work with organisations nationally to create intersex inclusion and representation within those organisations, including LGBT organisations. We're looking to create nationally throughout the UK to be adding the I for LGBTIQA+, so that all LGBT organisations become LGBTIQA+ organisations throughout the UK, the major organisations, and that they can provide support across the UK for people with intersex variations, for people also, for parents when they have a child that's born with an intersex variation, so that they can find support, leaflets, information, so that it can create the same sense of comfort and well-being and security and happiness that we have for the LGBT populations that our campaigning organisations exist for, that these centres exist for. I know that we all continue to experience oppression. Everybody in the LGBTIQA+ communities continues to face oppression, and I'm not suggesting by saying we'd like to add the I that, in those spaces, that the people already existing in those spaces and supported by those these organisations somehow aren't experiencing prejudice. But I'm just knowing that there are so many important campaigns that collectively organisations, LGBT organisations, work for throughout the country to create equality. They have funding pathways. They have very good organised ways of approaching inequalities and creating equality, and they've been doing it for a very long time. And I think rather than being Intersex Equality Rights UK isn't there to just be some sort of isolated body. It's there to work with everyone, and with businesses, with all organisations to create positive change, to create inclusion. Equally, we are working together with people who wish to be included. So we're called Intersex Equality Rights UK. Across the globe, intersex organisations use the word intersex, and there's Intersex Human Rights Australia, Interact, supporting people with intersex variations. Intersex is a word commonly used, it's a cultural term, but I always have to say that not everybody, just as not everybody who identifies as trans wants to be included in trans activism, or wants to be included in, or considered to be trans even. It's the same with people who are born with intersex variations. We're working to support those that wish to be included under the intersex umbrella in whichever way they do, but we're certainly not labelling others who don't wish to be included in that way. I think another important thing for me to say with my intersex equality campaigning hat on is that intersex, for those of you who don't know, and this is always important because this is part of the work, when we're born, all of us are born with sex characteristics. And sex characteristics are our genitals, our internal organs, sex organs. But just as there is variety in every human has variety in their sense of sexual orientation, in their sense of gender identity, so does every physical body have variety in the way we have our sex characteristics. And for people born with intersex variations, these are the variety, the variation, the diversity in the way our sex characteristics are is such that people describe it as perhaps, in inverted commas, ambiguous, or and not fitting quite neatly into either kind of male or female categories, and these binary notions that exist in medical spaces. And so we have historically for many, many years and continue to be pathologized when we're born, as though the differences, the diversity in our bodies is some kind of medical emergency, which of course it isn't. It's not an emergency when you have healthy diversity in your physical body, but currently it's considered to be so, and a social emergency. And with the kind of premise that society can't accept us, medical interventions are performed on us, and parents are persuaded to consent to these with the idea that it might give us better lives. But consistently, we have been campaigning for these to stop, because it's not something we are able to consent to, because we are infants when these happen, or we're children. And this is really important part of the activism. And this is where it sets us apart from the other people in our kind of, in the LGBT IQA plus letters, is that our population is at risk, from the womb onwards. At any point that it's noticed, we can either, we are at risk of a medical intervention that we haven't consented to, which serves literally to assign us a sex category and a gender identity. Everybody born with intersex variations is given either a male or female sex category at birth, and just as everyone else in the population is. But the difference is with us, there are medical interventions which seek to carve into our bodies that so that our bodies look in alignment with notions of what it is to be male or female. We would love to have the opportunity to ask for these, to have elective surgeries if we wish for them, when we are old enough to understand our own bodies, our own sense of gender identity, and our own sense of sexuality. So that's just one of the oppressions that we experience, but it's a really important thing that we need to campaign for to change. A lot of people are shocked that that's still happening in the UK, and ultimately, that's every day I wake up and feel that sense of pain, because I know every day that this is a continued practice in the UK and globally. And it's something that we really, really need allyship and support to end it. And we also need to support families and people with intersex variations with psychosocial support, so that they have the support to live in society feeling safe, feeling supported, feeling understood, being able to express ourselves, and being able to really being able to find our way and feel joy in ourselves and have compassion for ourselves, which really the medical interventions create a lot of body shame. They create a lot of sense that we aren't good enough as we are, that we aren't okay as we are, that in order to exist in society, we have to be erased and changed. And of course, talking about this, I'm sure you must be aware that conversion therapy, you know, does very much affect notions of what conversion therapy might be on a physical level, but also on a psychological level. This kind of emphasis on us having to change to be normalized, in inverted commas, that's a conversion therapy. It's abhorrent. And one of the campaigns, one of my concerns at the moment is that we aren't being included in the campaign to ban conversion therapy. It's not even on the table. I'm very much 100% with our trans siblings that trans must, of course, be included, but I'm also asking everybody to say, and intersex, trans and intersex, no LGBT without the I. We must support and include our population in the ban on conversion therapy.
Absolutely. And what's changed for you in the past year? The world has slowly returned to in-person events. How has this interacted with your work?
So yeah, as I was saying, like, the campaign is to create systemic change. It's to create systemic inclusion and representation. And part of campaigning has always been showing up, turning up, being visible at protests, being visibly seen to exist. Visibility and representing is so important for our population. And so coming back into a space where we're in-person events are happening again, although it actually is nerve-wracking. I'm sure you've felt this, we all have, haven't we? There's a pandemic, we know it hasn't gone away, and yet we're all trying to engage in society again. And many of us also feel a little bit burnt out from the last 2 years, I must say. We started, I know many of my, the people I work with, my friends and kind of colleagues, you know, we have been feeling a bit burnt out from the pressures of the last 2 years, and then suddenly getting out there, and then, you know, many of us coming down with COVID and then trying to get out there again, and it's a tough time, isn't it? So it's, on the one hand, it's fantastic to engage in in-person events again, to be seen, to be representing, and to be able to raise awareness in that level, and also to be able to that networking moment where you can actually have a conversation with somebody in a relaxed manner, just over some coffee, or at an event where afterwards I can actually speak one-to-one with people, perhaps in an audience, that want to come up to me and ask questions. That kind of personal, those sorts of exchanges are really important, and I've really missed them. I know many of us have. But like I said, it's been very hard kind of to hit the ground running and just pick up on things where I really do feel the government hasn't properly supported the, you know, our us to know how to safely engage, and we keep getting kind of knocked back with waves of illness. And then, you know, and keep pushing forward. We're all doing our best. I think we're all doing amazingly well, but I think we could have done with better guidance in order to how to do all this.
Absolutely, definitely. And you recently redesigned the Pride flag to include the intersex population, and you've spoken of the importance of flags being inclusive, supportive, and celebratory of the community in its entirety. What drove you to redesign the flag, and how do flags like this one drive representation?
So really, as soon as I saw Daniel Quasar, I didn't know that I didn't really think about, like, who makes our flags, who makes these important cultural symbols to represent us. And I never thought I would be a person who would do something like that, because I didn't know that I had permission. Who does this? And then, I didn't know, it took some research to find out actually it was Gilbert Baker who did the rainbow flag, and you know, the iterations after that. But and to realize that in our community, you know, our flag, you know, what it means to exist, and how it takes up space for us when we're not claiming a territory on a piece of earth. We're claiming space in society as existing, aren't we, with our flag? And it was their space on the flag for us. Well, Daniel Quasar did a fantastic thing in adding, because Amber Hikes from the Philadelphia office added the black and brown stripes to represent black, brown, and people of color. And then the trans Monica Hikes and did the black and brown stripes, and Amber Helms, I'm pointing to my flag behind me, did the trans flag. And when Daniel Quasar put them all together with Gilbert Baker's flag, there was this white triangle space. It was much smaller than this, but I thought if I move things around, in 2018, Daniel Quasar did that, and when I saw that white space, I thought, oh, I could fit the intersex flag there. I know a lot of people thought the same, but who of us would do it? And then what it was since 2018, and feeling that and thinking someone will do it, but then in 2021, we were in lockdown. We were all struggling. We were isolated and silenced by our lack of ability to protest. We were coming into, there were two things that happened that were really significant. There was the 2021 census, which excluded people with intersex variations. So we had been engaging to try to get inclusion in it, because we knew, and we were celebrating with trans people, for trans inclusion in the 2021 census. It led to increased funding, increased awareness, more organisations, understanding that they needed to be inclusive. But the exclusion of intersex, despite having engaged with the Office for National Statistics since 2018 to try and get inclusion, and the excuse being simply that we weren't a homogenous group, which makes no sense. No group is homogenous. Well, that was just, the anger we felt. So there was that. And then Ida Hot Day, excluding lesbians, lesbophobia, excluding, which Linda Riley, our wonderful publisher, who does so much amazing work, has raised as well. Lesbophobia is not included in that. Interphobia, hate crime towards people with intersex variations, isn't included in that. How will we, how is it okay to keep forgetting intersex, our population? It felt so, I had such sorrow in the background. We were just on social media. We weren't really able to get out there. And so I thought, this is a visual thing. It's a way to make something joyful out of it. It's a way to kind of create a gift for us, a gift of inclusion on the flag, and to feel seen, because we were feeling so hidden. So initially I did it through my organisation, Intersex Equality Rights UK, on our Instagram account. And I put this up on our account in May. And I said, here's the flag. And then amazing reporter, Vic Parsons, a trans reporter for Pink News, saw it. I didn't know that they had done this, but saw it and then wrote about it. And it went viral overnight, really. And by June, internationally, it was being declared the new Pride flag. And that in itself was an amazing thing, because in my mind, I had done it to create systemic change at Pride events, and knowing that would lift our community so much, and knowing that to be seen and included, and to feel it currently funding for our inclusion, or an understanding that we might need platforms to speak at Pride events, it just doesn't happen, and it needs to happen. As you can hear from what I'm saying to you so far, there are so many elements of oppression that we're experiencing that urgently need attention, and that urgently need allyship, and we need people to stand together with us and protest and say, enough, enough is enough. We need to uplift the intersex community, and we need to make sure that they have the same protections that everybody else does. And just to kind of emphasize that as well, we aren't included in the Equality Act. So unlike LGBT populations, we aren't included in the Equality Act. So interphobia, hate crime, it can't be prosecuted as such. So when I experienced hate crime, and many other people with intersex variations experience hate crime, there isn't a way to prosecute the person who has done it. They have to use it, say it was homophobia or something else, and call it homophobic hate crime, which it isn't. It's interphobic hate crime. These sorts of things continue not to change. And yes, we're campaigning for that, but part of creating systemic change became an understanding for me over 2021 as well, through the activism of the flag, through everything that was happening, that it had to be about creating best practice. It had to be about organizations understanding, us engaging with them, and them understanding that through creating best practice, instead of waiting for the Equality Act to catch up, because government were just not paying attention at this stage, that is how we could make change happen. And that's how we've gone forwards, and keep going forwards, because it's society. Laws are made, laws reflect social norms. You can't make a law in government and then inflict it on society if society hasn't caught up. The law is informed by social norms. If we can, through the flag, through the activism, through people rallying around with us, raise awareness and have opportunities to speak, then society will know we exist, will support us. And I believe that's the way round that it will work, that we will actually get some legal protection so that we can live safely in society and that we can feel represented and included.
Mm-hmm, absolutely. And it's also been featured on the set of And Just Like That, and Lewis Hamilton has worn it on his helmet, which is just incredible. So what does it mean to you to have this visibility and to have the flag that you designed out in the public sphere?
Honestly, it's a collective feeling of joy. I feel joy for all of us, all the people that have made posts internationally, on social media saying how much it means to them, all the people that have messaged me. Obviously, I remember watching Sex in the City and many years ago, and when And Just Like That came on, this new series, I was interested and wanted to see it, and at the beginning of episode 8 is when the Sarah Ramirez, who plays a non-binary character, Shay Diaz, is on a stage at a kind of rally, at a queer rally, and behind them at the beginning of the episode is this enormous flag, the flag, that I redesigned to include the intersex population, which I called the Intersex-Inclusive Pride flag, or the Intersex-Inclusive Pride Progress flag, and yeah, seeing that, it was joyful. I didn't, it feels almost unreal that it went viral on the internet. One of the reasons we continue to experience non-consensual medical interventions is because the government doesn't interfere with the medical body internationally. Governments aren't stopping medical bodies who are saying society's not ready for you. Society's not ready for you, so we have to change you. And the flag went viral on the internet. Everybody was here for intersex inclusion. All over the world, hundreds of thousands of people responded to it on Twitter, on Instagram. People have contacted me from all over the world. It's not just television. It's organizations, it's communities, it's schools, it's universities. It's people wanting to have this new flag, including the intersex community, on a crosswalk, in their country, in their city. It's about it's that shows us that society is ready for change. It is ready to support us, and governments need other people that need to catch up now. But what we really need, and what I really need in order to really do the work of the activism of what the flag is giving me, is be allowed to speak. I need to be allowed to speak at events to help people understand where we sit, what it is we're fighting for, where we sit in the flag, because some people have said to us, oh, but you're not every intersex person is LGB, not every intersex person is trans, and I say no one on this flag is everything. We intersect, we're all distinct. We have sexual orientations, we have the intersectionality that the black and brown stripes bring. We have trans on the flag, and we have intersex on the flag. But so that, that's sex characteristics, that's gender identities, that's sexual orientation. Those are the things, that are being included on there. And nobody thinks we all have to have each other's characteristics in order to exist there. We understand that we can stand in solidarity together and pursue equality rights together, and also feel joy and celebration together, because we do have so much commonality and we do intersect. As you know, I'm also a lesbian, and many people in our community experience senses of belonging in different parts of the flag. That's why it's such a joyful space, and that's why it feels so meaningful. It felt so meaningful when Lewis Hamilton wore it on his crash helmet at Qatar Grand Prix in November last year, and also in Saudi Arabia at the Grand Prix there. But what I really wanted was a chance to meet Lewis Hamilton, a chance to say thank you for wearing the flag, the latest version of the flag that I added the intersex inclusion to. And I wanted to say to Lewis Hamilton, this is about let Lewis Hamilton know about our population, so that Lewis Hamilton have that conversation, thank him, and also raise awareness that way. And I was thinking, it's that I need people to connect that moment and think, hang on, it's not just a pretty flag, but, you know, Valentino Vecchietti added it for a reason, you know, with intersex equality rights. What's the reason? What's more than that? Let's give Valentino a chance to speak about that and share that, raise that awareness, so that we can have that knowledge and we can fully support that inclusion. Just as, you know, we have events all the time that allow people in the other letters, you know, on the flag to explain, you know, what it's about, what it means, and what we need for our populations.
Absolutely. And moving on to your columns at DIVA magazine, after the murder of Sarah Everard, you spoke out about the power of protest in affecting change, and about how protest is a very powerful, very British thing to do. How does protest interact with and intersect with your work, and what meaning do you think that protest holds in contemporary LGBTQI activism?
We have so much important work to do with protests. Prides are about that, but also reacting to events like you know, it's hard to even speak on it, because you wouldn't think these sorts of things could happen. You wouldn't think that women at a vigil for Sarah Everard could be physically removed from that space by police. It's just so wrong. We wouldn't think we would have to be concerned about that, but these are the things that have been happening. Bad decisions have been being made. Another bad decision is to exclude trans people from conversion therapy, the ban on conversion therapy. Another bad decision has been not to even consider including the intersex population. You know, all these things, of course, need moments of protest. We need to be able to let society know when something is wrong, and raise awareness and create support, so that we can rally together and get the right thing to happen with government legislation, and get the support we need. And protest, we've always resorted to protest. We've always protested as a country on so many things, like the right for women to vote, for instance. You know, it is unending. And also, I do think of our Pride events, and I was at Reclaim Pride, marching at the front there, you know, with with Linda Riley, who I'm so in awe of, and does so much important work with a fantastic Lady Philippoku, who's so remarkable and founded UK Black Pride, and Peter Tatchell, who I know is also, all of these people are supportive of intersex inclusion. But you know, we needed to do that. We needed to march. We needed to march for things that matter. And I think what we need to do, like the next step, like how do we make prides really inclusive? It's about uplifting and giving platforms to speak, I think, for the most marginalized in our communities, for the most erased, for the most silenced. I think we need to be thinking about our LGBTIQA plus asylum seekers, our homeless populations, the intersex population, the trans population, you know, and all the intersections that go along with that, people with disability in our populations, Black, brown, and people of colour. We all need to be uplifting our most marginalised within our community at Pride events, giving us an opportunity to speak, and allowing us to let the people, you know, let society that is so here for Pride. So many people come from all over the world to attend Pride events, whether they're part of the community or allies to the community. These events mean so much. It would mean so much if we could have platforms to speak at those events, and rather than centering and privileging the most wealthy organizations, you know, it would be so good if we could switch that round and get the wealthy organizations and corporations to feel good about uplifting the most marginalized, and for that to be the thing that makes them feel like they're doing their thing and like they're being rewarded. You know, for us to change our mindset and realize the biggest reward is if you uplift the most marginalized, give them space to speak, and change how society is working. That's something to celebrate.
Absolutely, couldn't agree more. And obviously Lesbian Visibility Week platforms and empowers lesbians in all their forms, from he, him lesbians to non-binary lesbians. How does your intersex equality work intersect with lesbian empowerment, and how can the lesbian community support intersex rights?
Yeah, that's a fantastic question. As a lesbian, I'm keenly aware of, we have so much still to campaign for, and so much more work needs to be done to increase lesbian visibility. It's amazing, the Lesbian Visibility Week is really important. I'd love it to be Lesbian Visibility Weeks, go on for longer. And I'd love every day to be Lesbian Visibility Day. I'd love it if we could have representation, if we on television, in films, in advertising, much more representation so that we could feel seen. That would be amazing. And we have so much to do to understand that, and to so much more support's needed. And I mentioned that we need Ida Hoblit, including, those events as well. All events need to be much more inclusive of our lesbian community, but also, we do intersect with the intersex community. So, I was born with an intersex variation, and I also have a lesbian sexuality, and many of my friends, I must say, do as well. I've met so many intersex people in the lesbian community. I think, lesbians have been staunch supporters of trans rights and trans inclusion, and I fully believe that lesbians can be staunch supporters of intersex inclusion and really help to uplift us and give us platforms to speak and really help to change what's happening. There's nothing more powerful and important, I think, than to see, when you see lesbians of, as you said, of all varieties, with all intersections, coming together, because it's so powerful, and there's so much we can make happen, and so much change that can happen that way. Every time I've done an event that's been in relation to our community, it's been amazing to see non-binary, trans, as well as cis lesbians, and as you said, with all the different pronoun usage. The fact is, there's something beautiful about and powerful about us coming together, and there is a lot more work that needs to be done for people in our community to understand what is intersex, what does it mean, and how we do intersect, and how how we can be a thriving and included part of the population. I'm delighted, DIVA magazine has been so important to, and, Linda Riley, Jane Czelska, one of the editors, Carrie Lyle, Roxy Bordelin, and Linda Riley, obviously. So it's been it's meant so much to feel included and feel seen and be heard and be given platforms. It feels like it's just the beginning. I've worked hard to kind of raise awareness about other people with intersex variations in our community, and sort to kind of uplift friends of mine working in industry, like Kai Griffin. He's he and they pronouns, and is an actor who I've written about here in DIVA about, who's the actor, playing non-binary actor, character in Hollyoaks. But also people like Danny Coyle, who's a wonderful intersex creator, and being able to uplift people in our community who also intersect with the lesbian community. It's really important to me. And I do feel like it's a safe space for us to be, and that's so important. And it's a space where we can thrive, and we can share ideas, and we can make plans for how to create the futures that we want to have.
Absolutely. And you also recently gave a film lecture, Intersex Stories, Activism, Resistance and Being, at BFI Flair, which focused on intersex culture. How is intersex currently represented in film?
So yeah, this was really important to me. I've been working with the British Film Institute for many years. They've at Flair film festivals, where they've asked me to come and speak after films featuring intersex or focusing on intersex, usually documentaries, but sometimes fiction films. And there's been the reason it's important is when we think about how important it is that at the Flare Film Festival that the British Film Institute does every year, having representation, being seen in that culturally represented for, for lesbian and gays. It used to be the Lesbian and Gay Film Festival, didn't it? And then it was the lesbian, gay, bisexual, and then trans was added. And all these letters added after the Equality Act in 2010, organisations had a remit, they had a duty to provide funding and mentorship to support these marginalised groups to be in the film industry, to mentor them, to support them, to fund them, to make films. That's really mattered. It's mattered for our culture. As we said earlier, how much it's mattered to us as lesbians to see visibility, how much it matters to the trans population as well, to have films made and to be able to make films and representing them. And then we saw a shift, didn't we, as well, to people saying, well, you can't have straight cis actors playing us. If it's a trans character, a trans actor needs to play it. We need to step up, and gay people need to play gay people, and lesbians need, etc., and bisexual. And it's the same with intersex. It's time, but there's so much work to do. So doing this film lecture, getting space to do it mattered. Back in 2020 was when I was first going to do it, and it got cancelled because of the pandemic. And so, being able to do it in person in 2022 felt very empowering, but it was also a very different lecture that I gave then than I would have given 2 years before that. In those 2 years, did we see intersex films being made? Did we see an increase in intersex visibility? Did we see people submitting to film festivals? Not really, no, because we don't have, unlike the other members of the LGBT, people in the Equality Act, sorry, fluffing my words, but there is no remit. So it's about, can I create best practice? Can I speak on that? Can I ask? Can I see? And I believe there is a lot of goodwill to create that, so that we can, so using that lecture, talking about films, talking about what the situation is, talking about, from trying to make films about activism to raise awareness about non-consensual medical interventions, moving all the way through to fiction films about us, not portrayed by us though, and then fiction films where people like River Gallo, who's an intersex writer, director and actor, who made that very short but brilliant film Pony Boy and represented in it, and then people like Kai Griffin, who's an intersex non-binary trans actor, representing, for instance, in the NYX Cosmetics ad, showing that we can be in joyful spaces, we can do the work, but we need support. You can't expect us to, it's no good to say, where are your films for the festival? Why haven't you made any? The way it needs to happen is for people to say, let us support you to fully thrive and represent in the industry, so that all those, the population, the intersex population in the UK is over 1.1 million. We make up 1.7% of the population. Globally, it's over 130 million. It's about saying, all of us need to see representation and inclusion. We need to see a multiplicity of stories. We need joyful stories as well as campaign stories asking for the medical interventions to end. We feel the burnout and the exhaustion, from the trauma and the harm, and we need moments of joy. And film would be a fantastic space to do that. So it's about saying, can we have this support through best practice to be included? Yeah, and I will continue to do this and to keep doing this, and because I fully believe that the ways that the LGBT community has campaigned for support and inclusion are the right ways for us to also campaign for support and inclusion.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And to kind of sum up, what does the future of intersex activism look like, and what's next for you?
The future of intersex activism, it's about what we've seen. I like to learn from other people's activisms in other marginalised groups. So I've been really informed by the disability rights movement. I've been informed by the Black rights movement. I've been informed by the trans rights movement and the LGBTQA movement as well. I've been informed by all these movements of that campaign work, and we can see, you know, that it's not enough to be in the Equality Act for trans people. Unless society is with us and supporting us, trans people can still just get cut out of a ban on conversion therapy, for instance. There's still problems accessing healthcare, and it's about society always being with us and recognizing that we exist within it. You know, that trans people are born into families every day. Adults recognize and begin to understand their own senses of trans identities with the support of visibility. And it's the same for people with intersex variations, in the sense that even when I do believe we will get equality legislation at some point, I do believe at some point we will get inclusion in the census, so that we actually are allowed to say that we exist and feed back. You know, how can a population census not erase our community? It's abhorrent. But let's remember that it was only last year that trans people had a chance to state their visibility within it. So I do believe we'll get inclusion in those spaces, but I'm also very keenly aware that it's about continued engagement with society. It's an unending process, isn't it, for us to always be supporting kids growing up in schools, be supporting and educating teachers, be supporting educating parents, and just, you know, that the work of that is unending. So what's the future of intersex activism? I would hope that at Prides, you know, certainly I'm loving that everybody's using the new Pride flag, but what I would really like is people to say, Valentino, would you like to say something on what it means to include our population and how can we support you? I would love those moments to raise awareness. And also for Pride events to be all over the country and all over the world, to be giving space to people with intersex variations to stand up and speak. To, you know, last year at Trans Pride Plus, Kai Griffin spoke, and me, Danny Coyle, Saoirse Blay, stood with Kai in the background holding up banners, but we need more than that. We need the I visible. We need people to, you know, intersex, LGBTI, QA plus intersex people. We need that visibility to that level. And that's one of the huge campaigns as well, is trying to get the UK up to date, because in the rest of Europe, large organizations already use SOGS, the acronym for sexual orientation, gender identity and expression, and sex characteristics. That's all inclusive, so including sex characteristics where intersex come in, as we know, and LGBTIQA+, they include the I after the T, so that intersex is visible and it stays visible. It's not okay to hide us behind a Q or in a plus sign, because we have serious human rights equalities to that we need to gain. We absolutely do. And to be honest as well, the first time I ever heard anybody chant intersex lives matter was at Trans Plus Pride. I'd never heard it before at any rally that anybody had chanted that. It's that early days for us. We have so much work to do. When I was at Reclaim Pride, nobody had heard the word interphobia. So nobody chanted for an end to interphobia. They chanted quite rightly for an end to transphobia, but I didn't hear anyone chant, and I didn't have a chance to speak. What I would like is to have a chance to speak, to let people know that they can chant for an end to interphobia, that they can chant to support us, you know, the words that people need to use to understand. And we even had a conversation, didn't we, earlier, about words that we can use, about language when it comes to intersex. That it's that early days in the work. So there's so much still to be done. And there are so many people as well that I need, I'm looking to elevate into spaces that they can also be seen and feel represented.
Absolutely. Well, Valentino, thank you so much for your insight. This has been such a fascinating conversation, and I'm sure it will go down swimmingly. So everyone, please do stay tuned for the rest of our events during the Lesbian Visibility Week. Fantastic.
Yeah, I would love to say thank you so much to everybody that reads the column, everybody that supports me, and all the wonderful messages as well, and everyone who's supporting the new flag, and so much gratitude and love for DIVA magazine and the entire team. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you.